Since recording the podcast you're about to listen to, the Illinois EPA and the U.S. EPA have come to an agreement in November of 2024 on the wastewater treatment plant permit PFAS special condition language, and it's now final. Going forward, all wastewater treatment plant permits being renewed will have this finalized PFAS special condition language in it. There are some POTWs that currently have their public notice permits posted, and it has the PFAS language in it. Here comes the episode. Welcome to B&W Insights. I'm your host, Mark Seifert. In a previous episode, we talked to Megan Fox about PFAS removal in drinking water. In today's episode, we talked to Nichie Schaeffer about wastewater and how the complications of the wastewater treatment process really play into effect on removing PFAS. PFAS was designed in the 1940s. It was used in hiking gear and firefighting foam and pots and pans. But today we're trying to remove it from our drinking water, our wastewater, our streams and rivers. Coming from a municipality that had PFAS, I understand how the wastewater operators are trying to remove phosphorus and now PFAS. Let's talk to Nichie about all the different challenges that PFAS brings. Ready? Let's go. Nichie, thanks for coming down today. We're talking PFAS and wastewater. How long have you been at Baxter Women?
So I've been here for 16 years. I am the environmental department manager here at Baxter & Women, but I've been an engineer for 24, so I've been around for a little while.
Nice. So PFAS, how did you start working with it? It's in wastewater, it's pre-treatment, it's environmental. How did the Nichie Schaeffer way to PFAS start?
So about 4 years ago, it started becoming on the radar for wastewater treatment plants with respect to U.S. EPA. They're the keepers of all the what's on the radar for toxics and pollutants. So we started to hear about the effects at treatment plants with biosolids. So it's been about 4 years-ish.
Nice. What is PFAS? Where does it come from? Why are we talking about it? Give me the Reader's Digest of what is it?
So it is a fluorinated chemical. It's got a really long chain. It's best to go Google it to see what the structure looks like and what it is.
I know from my days in the municipalities, I found out about PFAS through the movie Dark Water. And then, I started looking into it, and then we got a note from the EPA that we're doing testing, and it was kind of just like thrown at municipalities. Why are municipalities just starting to talk about it, like you said, last 4 years, when this has been going on since 1940?
That's a great question. I think there's a lot of, it takes a while to get research, to get the data, to understand what the impacts are on people in the environment. And just like with PCBs and pesticides, it wasn't until like the 60s where we started to see the degradation of wildlife and the endocrine disruptors. See PFAS as an endocrine disruptor as well. And so there's just not as much data as with PCBs and pesticides. And now that data, there's more research, so we're starting to see it. It's kind of a slow burn, and it's catching up with the other toxics and other organics that are out there that are causing problems.
So with this slow burn, we look at, most MCLs in the drinking water side and most regulations on the wastewater side stem from some sort of health effect. Have they found, and what are those health effects that they're pointing to with PFAS? Where is that leading us?
So there's some data. They're showing, again, endocrine disruptors. They act like hormones. They fake us out. So that's not good for reproduction. There's also cancer-causing properties. But the reality is there's not as much data on that, and there still needs to be data to be had. Additionally, we don't yet know the true risk to human health. Now, let me tell you this. They say that there's at least 9,000 different individual PFAS compounds. I was just at the National Pretreatment Workshop through NACWA, the National
Association
of Clean Water Agencies. And they even said this year there might be upwards of 14,000.
So this is a growing problem. This is not something that
Yes.
we're just going to put a pin in and keep us here.
No, and here's the upshot. We do not yet know the risk and the toxicity of which PFAS chemicals. We don't know that yet. There could be maybe 8 or 10 of them that are the most detrimental to human health. It could be all of them. We don't know yet. And we need that research first so we can target specific congeners of PFAS so that we can target limits.
Right.
That's going to be the uphill climb.
So in order to find out more, it's obviously something that's going to have to be sampled immensely.
Yeah.
Where are we at in the sample, requirements nationally? Where are we at in what should municipalities and treatment plants be doing? Should treatment plants be doing above and beyond? What are the federal regulations saying in sampling?
Right. So right now the directive from US EPA is there's a national influent POTW study happening. So I call them the favorite 400. There are 400 publicly owned treatment works, POTWs, across the country who are being mandated to monitor the influent, effluent, and the sludge for PFAS. Now, that is for the national study. However, in every state, the federal US EPA is going to pass down state-level regulations to the major POTWs, those that discharge over 1 million gallons a day,
Right.
to monitor influent, effluent, and sludge. They're all going to be slightly different.
Okay.
But the upshot is every state is going to have to do this, and it's going to be in their discharge permit issued by the state authorities, the state agencies. And that is going to be the baseline to collect the data we need to know what kind of loading, what are the plants seeing? How big is this? How
Right.
small is this? And we're going to go from there.
With all this sample data, we had talked with Megan Fox about how PFAS is getting in the drinking water. How's it actually getting into wastewater? Is it from the drinking water? Is it transferring through the drinking water? Do we know that yet of how is it getting into the wastewater treatment system?
So that is the golden question. And the interesting thing is that there are some industrial types, there's specific categories of industry that do use PFAS, that do discharge it. However, there's also commercial sources too. For example, car washes. Mm-hmm. It's the products that keep the water from bead on your windshield and bead on your car. Those are some examples. So there's also non-industrial sources of PFAS. Additionally, I think the biggest thing for our municipal clients to know is that there may be more domestic sources
that we even know.
And so sampling the collection system is going to be a key part of any kind of monitoring plan for treatment plants. It's not necessarily mandated. It's going to depend on the state, but it's not necessarily mandated that the collection system is monitored. But I am telling you right now, it is going to be crucial to get that collection system data to know if the domestic background is even higher than, say, an industrial source, a commercial source. So, and that's going to come into play later for local limit development for federally approved pretreatment programs that a POTW may have. That's going to be a crucial part. And just for the evidence for all the POTWs to get together through a state organization like the Illinois Association of Water
and
Wastewater agencies, IAWA, and our counterparts in Wisconsin and Florida and Texas and everywhere, knowing that domestic background concentration is going to be a lot of data for pushback.
Is there any municipalities sampling for PFAS in the collection system or in their plants now? I know there's the 400 across the country, but are local municipalities getting ahead of the curve?
Yeah.
Do you suggest, should people start testing now so they have the data?
So that's going to be a very individual question for each POTW. I know that there's some attorneys and legal experts that may or may not say caution, wait before you have the data. Some POTWs want to get ahead of the game.
Yeah.
So I it's my opinion, having more data is more power and
Right.
knowledge. I think it's better to get ahead of the game, but consult your local attorney.
Once we know we have it in a wastewater treatment plant, when we talk about drinking water, we're looking at GAC, granular activated carbon, we're looking at reverse osmosis. Are those similar processes to get out of wastewater, or is wastewater its own animal to remove PFAS? What are we looking at? How to even think about starting to remove it?
So I think the main focus initially is going to be reduction at the source. Source reduction is the biggest push. That is part of the mandate. Not only are POTWs will be required to sample, there's also going to be the identification of sources and then mandating source reduction plans. That's going to be the big push as well. That's going to cost POTWs money to find them and then implement these plans with these industries, and that's going to be a mandate.
So it's not that point source, finding the point.
Right.
So it should be industry, commercial, and then the background residential. But we should be looking across the board at every type of consumer to see what's it's coming from.
Right. It's mainly going to be industrial, commercial. They're not going to touch the residents yet.
Right.
However, but with technology, I do want to speak to some technologies that are brewing out there.
That's awesome. My next question was, what innovation are you seeing? What's
Okay.
coming out? What are you seeing in the research? What's the is there a magic bullet, or are we just going to be continually researching and finding new ways to get rid of PFAS in the wastewater?
Right now, there's not one surefire, effective way. However, you mentioned granular activated carbon, or GAC. While that is effective, there is not enough granular activated carbon in the country to supply all 16,000 plus POTWs across the nation. Right. We will run out of carbon before we can treat all the PFAS in wastewater. So that's not going to happen.
The big problem is when a wastewater plant or a drinking water plant uses the granular activated carbon, it eventually, like a sponge, exceeds its maximum allowable contamination, and you then have to recharge it.
You have to, and it's usually incineration or some other way, and then you have a residual. So GAC, that may end up being a remedy for the sources. However, there are glimmerings of some other technologies as well that's going to take more research. Okay. I will say that up front. One of them is selective ion exchange.
Okay.
So depending on if it's negative ion, positive ion, and depending on the PFAS individual chemicals, again, PFAS
you need a sample.
Yeah,
you need a sample to get back to it.
Because there's the tricky part with PFAS is it's not just one thing. There's long chain structures, there's short chain structures. While they are not biodegradable by any bugs, I love to call them bugs, any microbes that we know of, they do transform under, say, oxidation or chemical reduction. There's transformations that happen. So when PFAS comes into a plant, it might transform from long chain to short chain. And then the other trick is it's going to partition. Depending on which individual chemical it is, it may prefer to stay in the dissolve phase in the water and pass through the plant. It may grab onto the sludge and go out with the sludge. Yeah. And you just don't know we won't know until we sample. But the ion exchange, there is some selective PFAS chemicals that will get taken with the ion exchange or not. It's going to depend. And more research there.
So we talked a little bit about federal regulations. Some that have been, we're looking into it. Water has some guidance. Wastewater hasn't really come out yet with guidance. When do you think, or is there anything on the horizon of when the wastewater side will have some guidance or regulation or implementation? Where do you see that happening, or is there any chatter about it?
Yeah, so I think it's going to take at least 5 years, maybe more. Rulemaking is a long process in US EPA. And the first thing is we need data. So it's this influence study first, see where it's coming from, where is it going, where is it partitioning to. And then on the health side, the risk assessment to human health, what that criteria is going to be before we can develop water quality standards.
Absolutely.
So that's on that side. And then in parallel with that, US EPA effluent guidelines, Plan 15. So under the Clean Water Act, it's a mandate that US EPA create an effluent guidelines plan, and it's a biennial cadence. So there's a preliminary plan and then a final plan every 2-year cycle. Right now we're in Plan 15.
Okay.
And this is where US EPA looks at particular industry types. That's where the categorical industrial users come into play. And so right now in Plan 15, they're looking at specific categories of industry, and that plan has 3 different phases within it. There's the rulemaking. So those are effluent standards that are already on the path to becoming approved and then promulgated in the federal regs. Then there's the study phase. Right now we've got particular categories like landfills and metal finishing. For 2 examples, there's several more. They're in the study phase.
Right.
So industries are being sampled by US EPA.
So is there anything that a municipality should do to collaborate with their industries? To, I assume industries are aware of what's going on.
No, it's not 100%.
So is there something that municipalities should do? Should they be talking to their industries and letting them know about PFAS and say, hey, we have PFAS, we've detected PFAS in our wastewater influent, this is what's going on. Is that something that municipalities should be doing right now?
I think with respect to the POTWs that have federally approved pretreatment programs, that's going to be a matter of course that they should. So anyone who's a pretreatment coordinator out there or a utility director that has a pretreatment program, I highly, highly recommend that they start engaging with their permitted users that they already have on the books.
Yeah.
And look at the ELG Plan 15 and see which categories that are being targeted, the low-hanging fruit right now.
Right.
And engage with them. Now, for the POTWs that don't have pretreatment programs, I think this is going to pan out as a matter of course with their NPDES, National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System, i.e. wastewater treatment plant discharge permit.
Yeah.
That requirement for surveying their industrial and commercial users, that's going to pan out because they're going to have to find them and then they can engage.
You mentioned it. You brought it up. NPDES permits. Do we expect PFAS sampling in the next round of permits?
Yes.
And
some already have, depending on the state. So here in Illinois, that the draft language is out there. US EPA and Illinois EPA are negotiating that language right now. Now, for example, in Wisconsin, the Wisconsin DNR already has PFAS language. It's state-specific, so it's slightly different, but it's already out there.
So
but the upshot's the same.
Expect to see it in the next permit cycle for anybody with a POTW.
Yeah, it's coming.
So most municipalities did not produce PFAS.
No.
Namely, no one did.
They are passive receivers.
Is there any infrastructure bills or is there any funding sources to help wastewater treatment plants fund the sampling right now?
So I laugh only because this is an unfunded mandate. However, there are 2 programs from US EPA. So the first is the Clean Water State Revolving Fund for Emerging Contaminants. This is a US EPA
program?
Yes.
There's potential funding out there. You just kind of have to search out for it.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yes.
Well, thank you for coming down today. We appreciate you talking about wastewater and giving our clients and everybody who listens, a glimpse into how difficult it's going to be to get PFAS regulations and get it out of our wastewater. So thank you for coming down today.
Oh, my pleasure.
Removing PFAS from wastewater is going to take a ton of sampling. As you heard from our conversation with Nichie, this is just the beginning. Communities need to budget, look at when their next permit cycle's coming, and really dive in and look at the regulations that are coming down from the US EPA. From our entire team here at Baxter Woodman, have a great day.